Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 76 of Nutanix Weekly. I'm your host, Andy Whiteside, podcast number 4 of the day. And this is number 4. And the first 3, I forgot to say the new tagline. You guys ready? Podcasting with context, because context matters.
It does. I like it. Podcast.
I love the blogs. I love the blogs, but having this conversation with a group of people who, passionately love the space and want to talk about it, that context is so valuable. And I love that we do that. Philip Sellers on from the XenTegra side. Philip, how's it going?
Good, Andy. Having a great afternoon. Looking forward to closing out the day. It's been a good day.
So I asked Philip a while ago, he's been on calls all day long with customers, and he gave me one example. What's not counting the one you just had, the one you gave me in the last podcast, what's the problem the customer was trying to solve, and what problem did they bring?
Now I'm trying to think of a good one. Talked with a customer earlier who we've got existing Nutanix on VMware, and they are true believers. So we're helping them migrate and upgrade and scale out and consolidate. So I would file that under simplification. They're really in a place where they believe in the platform wholly, and they're simplifying overall operations down to this way of working.
So they're AOS currently on VMware. They're going to go AOS on AHV.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
Got a couple 3-tier clusters they're going to be collapsing in as well. All in, soup to nuts.
Were they always true believers, or they had to get one over?
So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing. We help them move. It's a medical customer, and so we help them move, trying to get better performance out of their EMR. We've made multiple different improvements around the EMR, helping with the database and how it runs on the back end. And so I think they were won over. I don't think they were true believers from the beginning. They were interested, talked to other customers in the healthcare space, and heard great things. And then out of the gate, it wasn't fantastic for them.
Yeah.
But we helped them change the way they were running some things, follow best practices, and now they get that same result: great performance and great outcomes.
Yeah, very common story. And when they finally come to their own understanding of what it is they want, it really makes that advisory type partnership thing make a ton of sense. Harvey Green, co-founder of XenTegra Gov. What's going on in Harvey's world?
A little bit of everything. Jerry and I were just talking about. He said, "You're not at a conference today?" I said, "No, that's next week."
And I know it's been
last week.
It's been a few weeks, but you're no longer in the basement either.
I am not. I am upstairs in the kids' playroom right now, which is fun.
There's got to be a story.
I got. No, I got some family that's staying with me on and off. So it's funny. In IT, normally you move upstairs, and that's an upgrade. In this case, not so much.
Oh, wow. Well, it looks like a fun room.
Yeah, they have lots of fun.
Same question for you. What customer problem have you solved today?
Today.
What problem did a customer bring? One problem that a customer brought today.
Yeah, so talked with a customer earlier who was looking at options to help them move from on-prem to the cloud. And for them, they don't really have a cloud footprint right now. So it was trying to figure out, not just like there's always a conversation on-prem to cloud. That sounds great, but you don't pick everything up and just move it. It's not that simple. So having conversations with them to think about, what stays and what goes, what has to live on-prem, what can go to the cloud, was a little enlightening for them. Because they did not think that they did not consider that they had to leave some things on-prem. So being able to talk to them about options that allow them to have on-prem resources and resources in the cloud of their choice, but still be able to use a model that allows them to consolidate control over both in the same way and not have to do everything all over again was super helpful for them.
And when you say cloud, you're talking about public cloud in this case.
Public cloud in this case, yes.
Yeah, because in XenTegra world, we literally could come pick the stuff up, put it in a colo, and it would be cloud to them. We might could actually just pick the stuff up and move it. I know that's not the normal path, but if you want that, let us know, because that's possible.
Absolutely.
Yep. Jira Cox, Jira, you about ready to move again? We haven't
No,
had
I
to
think
pick on you about moving in a while.
we're staying here for a little while.
That's good.
Nothing in the foreseeable.
First of all, how are you?
Doing well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm busy, but good. Good busy. Good busy. Fun busy. Having a good time. I guess same question to you. I'm sure you've been on 18 customer calls today. What problem was brought to you today that you were asked to address?
I met a new software vendor who has like a secure OT access solution, and they, because of a shared customer of ours, was trying to run that on AHV for the first time.
Yeah.
So I walked them through what does it look like. They had a typical kind of VMware OVA that they were used to giving their customers, and we kind of walked through some troubleshooting steps around. Do you still have the VirtIO drivers in there, or does your packaging process remove those? There's some troubleshooting steps you can do on AHV around booting the VM, even to like a IDE disk mode.
Right.
And so we kind of reviewed some of those troubleshooting steps. And then ultimately I just wound up spinning up a lab and saying, hey, here's an AHV cluster for 3 days, go, kick the tires on it and use it to help streamline giving an AHV friendly image, or really just a KVM friendly image to your customers for rapid deployment. So, because I think their requests to run on top of AHV are only going to increase over time.
Yeah. OT stands for operational technology, right?
It does. Thank you. Sorry.
So I was listening to a podcast, mostly security related this weekend, and the guy started talking about, we have all these client server networks that are very, very dangerous potentially. But man, if the bad guys ever figure out how to get into OT networks in mass, man, we're in trouble.
True story.
Yeah. So good that you were trying to help somebody in that space, and good that they're going to be able to run it on Nutanix, AHV, or VMware, or both, because we need that world to be very secure.
Yeah, I was even running a boot camp last week for some customers and showing them the latest version of Prism Central, right, which we can do a later episode on, that even right there on the dashboard of PC puts a security dashboard around, have you turned on microseg? Have you turned on intrusion detection? Here's how to scan your clusters and map them to published CVEs. Really kind of making it easy for customers to decrypt how secure is my Nutanix deployment.
Yeah. Well, you guys, Jira specifically brought a blog for us to review today. Let me do my commercial real quick. If you're a Nutanix customer and you're not getting everything you can out of the platform because your existing partner is not bringing advisement to you, let us know, because that's what we do. That's why we do these podcasts. We also like doing it. We just happen to be nuts about the space. But there's so much opportunity to help people. And if you're not getting the value out of Nutanix platform, it's not the platform, it's you, but it's really not even you, it's your partner. And we would love to kind of up that game for you. All right, Jira, I'm going to read the name of the blog from October 4th of 2023, so very recent. And then I'm going to ask you to pronounce the name of the authors. You ready? All right. The name of the blog is Beyond Ransom and Recovery, Defend Your Data Proactively with Nutanix Data Lens. I'm excited to talk about that. And this was written by
Sneha and Tahina from our files team.
All right. I'm not going to let you off that easy. Last names?
I think Sneha's last name is Chattervadula and Tahina Goel.
Okay. Well, I must admit that was pretty impressive. I thought I was going to stump you pretty hard, but you blew right through that.
They would chase him down in the building the next time he was there.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Jira, why this blog? Why today?
We already talked about it because it's sort of topical and evergreen for customers, right? Like security matters. So ransomware threats, as usual, only increasing, not really decreasing. Those guys don't take a day off. For the long-time listeners, good example of a bad style of automation. And so the worth protecting against.
Yeah. Well, good thing is we got AI to the rescue, right?
Surely that will save us.
Is that going to help us or help them more?
Why not both?
What's good for the goose All right. First section talks about unstructured data under siege. I'll let you discuss that, and then we'll have Harvey and Phillips chime in.
I think the key points here that the article is making are, of course, like everyone has unstructured data. It's like required data for the business. It gets mined for stuff like customer interactions or fed into KB articles. This data that is living on some file share somewhere that hopefully you're monetizing and isn't just like some ball of data that you have to preserve from now until the heat death of the universe. But as a result of that data having value to you, that data has value to attackers as well, right? Enter ransomware into the world we live in, and how do we help our customers elevate their security posture against those kind of threats?
Yeah, I use the following example, talking to my kids, whoever, unstructured data, that little grocery thing you scan so you get the discounts at the grocery store, all that stuff goes somewhere. And I'm sure the grocery store and all the vendors are finding ways to monetize that data.
I was thinking about that this past weekend. I was like, how many stores can you walk into now and give them like your phone number, and they can pull up like your last receipt, last transaction for like an easy swap, but like what an amount of data to have to store and be able to pull back up so quickly. That like in the world we grew up in, that wasn't a thing. Like, oh, you lost this piece of paper? Sorry, no return or exchange for you.
Well, how about this one? Next time you go get Mexican, they're going to realize that, hey, you're going to be back 2 days later for more toilet paper. They're going to advise you on that.
That's just smart business. That's just
Well, and that's the funny thing. Like, I read an article about a major fast food restaurant chain that during the pandemic, the amount of rich data they were getting because people had switched to their loyalty program and their mobile app and mobile ordering, they went through and renovated all their stores. And that's become their standard. I mean, completely pivoted their way of doing business because the richness of the data profiles, how often someone eats, what they eat, how to target. I mean, yeah, talk about absolute definition of monetizing your data.
Yeah. I keep waiting for the little lady with the samples. I come around the corner and she knows me by name and wonders why I'm 5 minutes later and I'm not normally.
Call ran long.
Yeah. Harvey, any comments on unstructured data being under attack?
No, I mean, I think that we've kind of hit that pretty well. You can see that it definitely has value to the organization, and because it has value to the organization, it becomes something that they might want to, or might have to pay for to get back.
Yeah. All right, Jairo. Next section says, starting with storage, layering the foundation for robust data security. What does that mean?
Pivoting in here into a point of view around like defense in depth is the kind of the standard in the environment here. And one phrase that the article uses here about IT and security leaders should look beyond endpoints. It's interesting. I would even expand upon that to say endpoints are important too, but of course protecting the data source itself which of course what we're focusing on today, is also a key part of that puzzle, right? So like everything matters, right? Like the file server in this case, like Nutanix files we'll talk about, and objects that can host the data itself, like security there, detection there matters, recovery there matters, but detection on the endpoints, detection at the edge, all of these things, are what contribute to an environment that lets you as the environment owner, as the administrator, like sleep better at night.
Yeah. I look at all the different layers and I know I can't say this, but I kind of just want to give up, but you can't do that. You gotta cover the different layers the best way possible, and you stack it all up and make a big, nice security cake, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, if you give up, that's when the bad guys win. So
yeah,
we don't negotiate with terrorists, Andy.
I didn't say negotiate. I just said give up.
Actually worse.
And that's just a joke. Please don't take me for that being serious. I have people for that. People that love doing that. That's why. I just like talking about it. Harvey, thoughts on the layering of security?
I mean, obviously, you definitely want more layers in your security cake, as you put it. I think being able to have a service like Data Lens is way past just the topic we're talking about, but just for ransomware and be able to being able to detect things quickly without having your eyes be the detection method is definitely a plus.
Yeah, no way the human can keep up with anywhere close to what they need to have visibility. Philip, your thoughts on layering and specifically data being the foundational layer?
Well, what I like about this is it's so close to the data itself, right? I've heard other solutions, particularly in the backup space, also do the same thing. They watch the data set and they try to find anomalies in that data set. And I think this is going to become the standard. You have to have something watching your unstructured data. I remember companies like Varonis coming in and talking to me, a decade ago and going, that's nice to have, but I don't know if I have a unstructured problem big enough to buy software like that. I think we've completely changed. And today you absolutely need data analytics around your unstructured data because of ransomware in particular.
Yeah. And to be fair, like I would love for my customers to have, inspection and monitoring of the data itself and the backups, right? Like it's almost moving into a world where monitoring for ransomware is everyone's job, meaning every human's job, but every piece of technology's job as well, right? Like we're better together, but for sure. And so like the layer of the cake we're adding on this one, or focusing on this new feature of it, is data lens, right? So like, of course, the data itself lives in Nutanix files. Wherever you run the cluster, right? Of course, on-prem, in a XenTegra data center, in a colo, across the street, in the cloud, anywhere. And then Data Lens is the SaaS component of that, right? So you have monitoring embedded in the file server. You have analytics about that running as a SaaS service. So that's the always the ever seeing eye, the never sleeping observability of that data, saying what looks normal here, what looks irregular here.
Yeah.
Well, and to pivot that a little bit, I mean, you talk about defense in depth. Each one of these layers has its own perspective too. We need to have a perspective from the endpoint. We need to have a perspective from the file servers itself. We need to have a perspective from the backups. Each one of those has benefits to be able to monitor. From the endpoint, we get to see where something may be trying to talk and what targets and things. So again, as you talk about defense in depth, think about the different perspectives that you need to give you good visibility.
Yeah. So the next part of the blog talks about what's new today, and I'm just going to run through these and then we'll break them down. Threat containment window, one-click recovery, permissions and risk visualization, and objects support. Jaira, the first one says preemptively detect and block attacks.
Yeah. So this is pretty cool. Now, sort of stating the SLA, we use here the window, right? Like how quickly can Data Lens, the monitoring SaaS service, catch something going on in the environment, right? So now we're actually coming out and saying that's 20 minutes now for Data Lens catching and really actually being able to respond to as well that action, right? So it uses lots of kinds of stuff it can do here, right? It uses signatures like signatures on the files itself, but also like user behaviors, right? So like IP, user account activity details, file activity, and then we say also like behavioral detection markers, right? So we can kind of fingerprint what looks like a regular usage of the file server, what looks like, automated bad guys, kind of like, ransomware, malware kind of stuff.
Quick question for you, Jaira, and I should know this, but is Data Lens, is that something you guys acquired or something you developed in-house?
That one is totally developed in-house. That was a net new, non-acquired SaaS service.
Yeah, that's awesome. Philip, thoughts on preemptively detect and block attacks?
Well, what I like about this is that as it detects, it's also helping us with that snapshot. Like that, it's giving us an extra safety net. Something anomalistic happened, it's reacting faster than a human can, and so that's something we can't compete with. And so having that one-click restore, which we'll talk about next, but I mean that response is huge. I mean we can't replicate that in human.
Yeah. I guess this will make sense. I was talking to somebody the other day about how to teach someone to drive a manual transmission car, and their response was, no matter what happens, if something doesn't seem right, push in the clutch. I was like, that's probably accurate. So in this case, if something doesn't seem right, start the snapshots. Is that what we're talking about here?
How about automated clutch pushing in on a schedule?
Yeah.
The analogy breaks down, but no, the not take a snapshot, but more like the snapshots are always occurring, right? So
Okay.
therefore, this is that ability to say, whenever you notice something going wrong, the clutch has already been pushed in, roll back to that snapshot. The analogy really gets problematic, but I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah. Harvey, any comments on the concept here in general?
Yeah, this is when the product went from security monitor to actual security guard. Before it would just tell you, hey, there's a problem, and then depend on you to go take actions. Now it is taking action for you and giving you options, which I always like.
Well, the cool thing is, Harvey, I can think back to you and I podcasting about this basically day it was announced at .next,
Yes.
and now
Yes.
less than 6 months later, here it is fully GA for our customers.
Absolutely. No, I remember that. That was a good time. We need to do it again.
So all this is well and good, but if you can't get it back to where you were, then there's no point. The next section, Jira, is one-click recovery.
So one-click recovery talks about, since we have these snapshots that we're taking all the time, we can take snapshots at like lots of levels. We can do in guest, right? In file system snapshots of the files themselves. We can also snapshot the entire file server at the AOS level and do fun stuff with that. But this ability to say, hey, here's a share that's had some level of infection activity on it, roll that whole share back to a known good point in time, gets all of our end users back up and running faster.
Right. Philip, you okay with faster?
Yeah, I mean, faster is the name of the game. I mean, I can't think of any customer that's going to come to us and go, I want slower. It's all about faster. So, yeah, I mean, when we redid our DR at my last organization, we called the process the big red button, kind of like the Staples easy button, right? And that's what I think of here. One-click recovery is that easy button.
Yeah.
Because I can think of, there's certainly the threat to the business of like the data staying encrypted, right? That's clearly, obviously, that's the big threat of ransomware. But I can picture a lot of customers actually would say the most painful part of the process is restoring, right? It's getting back to online state. Even if we don't pay the ransom, don't get that file decrypted, even just using the backups we had is too painful for the business to accept as is status quo.
Well,
having been through downtime situations, not necessarily ransomware situations in the past, there is that very real business conversation of, do we do A or B? What is more acceptable to the business? And you're right, getting back up online sometimes trumps, getting 100% of the data back. And, it mitigates a lot of times the badness of a ransomware event. But I mean, just in this week, we have news of multiple things going on at major corporations, and the size of the payouts being requested are just increasing too. So, I mean, this is huge, just to be able to get back into business, because the other side of it is not just the ransom, your lost revenue, the lost business that you could have been doing during that same time period.
I scrolled past it pretty fast. I saw a report that was listing like, where in the U.S. is it even, for our U.S. audience, where in the U.S. is it even legal to pay a ransom for ransomware? It's actually, like most states, it's actually federally illegal. Like, you're not allowed to, right? Because of course, if you are allowed to, that just simply rewards the attacker and makes them go find some other victim.
Agreed. This one click is the difference between having to basically stop the world and bring all your IT people in and try to recover things versus, hey, just everybody sit still and don't touch anything for a couple minutes and you'll have everything back.
Yeah.
Obviously, the second situation is way better than the first one.
And I mean, realistically, I've heard of issues and incidents where this is great, but we also have to make sure that there's not more and that we're not still susceptible. So it still makes take time to do forensics, but just restoring, I mean, that could be multiple weeks work effort, depending on your backup strategy, depending on what you have available to you. So, I mean, this is a huge accelerator because of how Nutanix Files is integrated into their overall solution.
Yeah, to that point, there's always the question of when something like this happens of, okay, now I'm going to start recovering. What data can I trust, right? What is available for me to go back to that I know is a known good? And having an option like this that has immutability built into it, that gives you a very, very good, these are things I can trust. Once you figure out when the issue started, you can go back to when you know it wasn't present, and then you know, because it was never written to since the first time it was written, that it's a good backup. It's something you can definitely use.
And that's where that perspective comes in. You have that extra perspective to feel good about these things because you now have data that you can trust, that is visibility you otherwise would not have had for your unstructured data.
Absolutely.
And guys, the quote here is from Haiku. That means third-party companies like Haiku can take advantage of this technology and improve upon it.
100%. Even without direct, like, actual, like, coding and API integration, like that, like Sabaya, who is a fantastic guy over at Haiku, VP of products, saying like this exactly fits in super well into a layer protection strategy, right? Like if you can't recover from snapshot, fantastic. When you can't recover from snapshot, that's when we have a backup. And nobody would say have just one or the other, right? The answer is both, and probably lots of both. So yeah, it's 100% collaborative there.
A lot of immutable stuff. Next one, it says permissions and risk visualization.
Yeah, so I think a lot of us understand that, like, commonly attacks that occur are often exacerbated, right, by overly permissive file structures, right? If someone can get something and has like write access to something, then that's something else that can get attacked, and it's at risk there, right? So of course we've probably all heard the industry buzzwords around least privilege and audit your file shares to what users can see. We're now making that a little bit easier, right? So within the console, we can now identify, hey, these shares might be flagged as overly permissive, right? How many folders in here have open access? How many folders have full control? And even the screenshot here is even showing like which users can see what and do what to what shares and what sections of data. So using this, our customers can now easily find what's the low-hanging fruit that I need to go, what doors in the wall do I need to go close and lock, right, that didn't need to be open in the first place.
Philip, thoughts here?
Go ahead, I was just going to say this is the lens in data lens. This is when you actually get to see things that you would have had no other good way of seeing. And the fact that they have it set up in this way that is also, easy to see, visually pleasing, and gives you risk scores and places to go look. Hey, this might look a little different than what you're used to, or hey, you might want to pay attention to this. Like that gives a lot of value in a very small package here.
Yeah. Here's what I see. Confirm this was intentional.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and I'll actually take it a slightly different direction. A story. A few years ago, working for an organization that decided to turn on SharePoint Universal Search and pointed it at file shares. And because they were overly permissive, well, lots of data was getting surfaced in search. And so, this is a real concern. I mean, that overly permissive is not just a security risk. It's also as we move forward with new technologies, it can also become a discovery risk within your organization where, there may be a any rule on a file share, and who knows what someone's put in there. I mean, any kind of confidential information could end up on that share. So, as a user, they tend to gravitate to whatever's easiest. And so I've seen organizations where they create shares that are tailored, and then they get tired of using those tailored ones because, well, I need to share this file from this share to another team who doesn't have permission. So I'm just going to put it in the all company share where everybody has access to it, even when that's not the appropriate level of access for the data. So I love that part of this from the risk visualization standpoint, helping us point out, where do we have those problems? And for me, it's a huge reason why I migrate your file share, your unstructured data onto Nutanix files.
Yeah. I hear any, and it still makes me cringe, even to this day.
Yeah, for those who couldn't see Harvey's face, he kind of looked like the kid from Home Alone with his hands and his face in between.
Oh my gosh!
I'm sure it was only put in there just for troubleshooting. It's just temporary. That won't stick around as a persistent configuration.
It won't make it into production.
All right. So, yes, it does. Number 4, support for in US object storage in US.
So Nutanix Unified Storage is sort of the new family portfolio, right, of both SMB, NFS, Objects S3, and then also, of course, iSCSI block storage, right? So we call all that kind of our unified storage portfolio. Storage for your application, no matter how you're up. Go ahead, Harvey.
More acronyms, please.
Totally, right. Storage for your application, no matter how your application wants to consume it, right? Across any of those 4 protocols. So within the NES family, right, then we have specific products, right, like files and objects and volumes, depending on what protocol you've got. So that's what that is, NES objects there, Andy. But yeah, so with this, right, like some of the great things we've had for years in files on the SMB and NFS side of the house, stuff like audit trails, like who has done what to this file or this directory, and show me all of the user interactions. Or opposite, show me, if I give you a user, what has that user done in the last day, week, couple weeks. Very useful if someone that has access to sensitive data turns in their notice, like, okay, great, well, hey, let me know what you've done. Let's go look now and see what you've done in the last 2 weeks, what might be walking out the door with you. So these kind of activity tracking and even anomaly identifications now come to objects as well. So the screenshot that we're showing here talks about stuff like audit trails around what's been done to a certain bucket being akin to like an S3 kind of folder, or even like usage trending, right? Like what's growing, where's my data going, what are the consumers of a given type of like S3 data store.
Philip, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this, certainly Data Lens, I feel like, is golden on the files side of the house. But yeah, I mean, growing use of object storage, I mean, it's coming up so often in conversations with customers, and there's really a move towards object storage, not only from a backup perspective, but for a lot of different data types, a lot of different types of sharing and things. So the fact that we've got that understanding here natively in Data Lens is going to be huge. I feel like this is preparing for the future. I called it that in an earlier podcast today. So I feel like this is one of those things that is preparing for the future.
The future can need lots of preparation.
Harvey.
I would just like to point out that at the end of this article, it talks about how you can get started for a year free on Data Lens. So if you are a Nutanix Unified Storage, Nutanix Files, Nutanix Objects customer today, and you are not using Data Lens, let's fix that for free.
You should feel called to action.
Well, and that's how we end this every time. So Nutanix makes it super easy to test drive this stuff and get engaged with the partner sales team, the Nutanix sales team, and really just take it for a test drive yourself. Jairo, I'm assuming you would recommend that.
100%, yeah. Because the nice thing is there's nothing to install, right? If you're already running files today on-prem, this is a SaaS service. You connect to it, there's literally nothing to deploy, right? So just turn it on, get the value out of it, get that inspection that doesn't sleep, right? That watches what's going on within the file server.
Yeah. Jira, does this require Prism Central, or can you do this without Prism Central?
I don't. It's a good question. I don't believe it requires PC inherently.
Okay. Jira, wrap us up from your perspective on this topic.
Man, I just so between this role and my previous role, like I've had one customer who's been on file since the day one release, right? And I actually just checked some of the phone home data. They're still on files 9 years later. And I just think like what a transformative amount of value we've put into that offering from 9 years ago. I'm not going to say bare bones, minimum viable SMB file share offering, but you'd be justified in thinking of that 9 years ago to now what it is now with dramatic performance, amazing availability, super easy, powerful, low latency DR and replication built right into it. And now really going on the offense against ransomware as well, helping make sure your data stays your data and stays online and available. I just think it's super cool stuff. I
love you just called it a good offense. I mean, that's the only answer here is to be on the offensive and put them on their heels.
Bad guys are thinking about it. If you're not, you're kind of losing.
Yeah. Yep.
Pretty much.
Yep. And we have the tools today to kind of mitigate them to a large degree. Philip, thoughts?
I think this is foundational technology now. I think given the risk and the amount of risk, you're probably going to start seeing your cyber liability coverage starting to ask, what do you have watching? Mm-hmm. And so, again, this is an easy button for getting that information and getting that monitoring that we'd love to help you set up if you're not using it today.
And getting this in place only helps for when things like AI become mainstream.
Absolutely. I mean, if we look at this technology and look at others similar, cloud-based, and that's where the ML and the AI data sets can really become powerful in helping pinpoint problems beforehand. I mean, we use it a lot in hardware anomaly detection and proactive support programs. I can see this continuing to provide value as more things get developed on the platform to help you identify the problems before you know they're problems.
Yep. Harvey, your thoughts wrapping this up?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I kind of go back to what I just said a few minutes ago. Like if you are a Nutanix files customer, Nutanix objects customer not using this, let's fix that. If you're a Nutanix customer and you're not using unified storage, let's fix that. I don't know anybody in IT today who would say, nah, I don't want something looking to protect me from ransomware. That's crazy talk. Right? That's just not the way things should be today.
Well, and as we talked about here, it's something helping me protect me against ransomware at all the different layers. And the Nutanix platform has a couple pieces of that, just if you just implement the platform.
Absolutely.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for the time and helping me with the context. I appreciate it as always, and look forward to doing this again. In 2 weeks? Hey, Jira, you know what? You mentioned your new role a minute ago, and what I've stopped asking you in the beginning of the podcast what your current role is. What is that new role?
Did I mention I have a new role? I see. I was talking about it, having customers. So in my current role, so I just get to have conversations like these now across the country. Right, so I'm in a role that covers the Americas, helping customers understand the portfolio, what can we do for them, solve problems, right. And even architecturally, get to designs about how do we do this at scale for customers in very, very large environments.
No, that's awesome. All right, guys, thank you for the time, and we'll pick it up again next time.
Absolutely. Thanks.